Okay, this is where we finished the last time looking at marks, and we want to obviously carry on and just finish off the discussion, I suppose, about when we talk about social class. Well, the first thing when we think about class in the modern day is again how this issue of education, to occupation is central to conceptions of class. And why does this matter again to you? Well, it matters because as digital marketeers, you clearly have to develop content, if you like, that speaks to people from different, I would suggest to you, class backgrounds. And this really does impact on you because basically as a digital marketeer, as I say, often the very fact that you're educating at master's level, being a master's level student with that level of qualification and being a digital marketeer, that puts you solidly what they'd say in the traditional middle class bracket, and moving towards upper middle class bracket. And then a lot of people would argue that you're also engaging in what's called the professionalising process, which is what class also does. Remember, class is about inequity and about division. Okay, it divides, if you like, groups of people. Now, the very fact that you're educating now, that's what's called part of professionalisation. Simply put, the very fact that you're a digital marketeer is you're going to create a profession of digital marketeers where eventually people will not be allowed to practice, if you like, as digital marketeers unless they would carry a qualification such as your own. So in other words, what you're seeing is you're seeing a process where through education, we don't actually include people. On the contrary, we actively exclude people. And this is what we're doing right now by educating, if you like, at the University of the West of Scotland and doing your digital marketeers qualification. So you guys are all about having a badge, an MSc badge that basically says, this is who I am, I have got a master's qualification, and unless you have this master's qualification, you cannot really practice as a professional digital marketeer. And that really creates a whole occupational grouping, and obviously you have to pay for the privilege. So if you like about it, that's another simple way of how you are excluding people. We can talk about this later in this tutorial course. So this is what you're doing. Oh, that's fucking rubbish. Okay, this is where we left it. Now, to just finish the discussion and notions of class, often what we talk about is class and occupation and education are central. Or education, oh fucking hell, man, that's fucking awful. Okay, this is where we left it when we had a brief discussion of obviously Marxism and how he perceived class in the process. And that's yes. Okay, this is where we left it, and let's finish off the discussion on mathematical identities, in this case, social class. Well, firstly, often today when we talk about class, education, occupation are central. Now, not only that, I would say it's just central to you and to the process of the professionalising process of the digital marketeer. Simply put, you're creating a new profession here. We're in the game, if you want to call it that, of not only demonstrating social class, we are demarcating a whole area. So, and we do this through education. Through your master's program, you're going to develop a level of qualification and you're going to professionalise an occupational grouping of people, digital marketeers, that's you. And what you're doing is you're creating knowledge and you are not including people, you're excluding people. You're creating a ring of steel almost, if you like, a discursive ring that prevents people, if you like, from really saying that they are real digital marketers unless they have gone through this long period of education and training such as you're doing right now. And that's what education does. It starts or it enhances the professionalising process. And it's the same with any major profession. It can be medicine, it can be law, it can even be, people who train to be priests or ministers. It's exactly the same. These are the traditional professions. People go through this professionalising process. So accountancy does it. All professions do this. They do it and they use education as a way of demarcating their terrain and getting everybody in the world to pay for it later on. So we can talk about this later on when we come to it in the tutorial. Classically, there's a very old way in Britain. This is the Jigner scale we used to use way back in the days. This was a very old system, but some people still refer to it. Not many, but this is the way they used to try and define people. And that concept of definition is really important because by defining, that links to notions of modernity. If we can get a fixed definition of people, then that creates an essentialist category for them. In 97 we had this new categorization, so we changed to this. So you had the whole different levels of classes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down here to 8. Okay, so this was way back in 1997 in the UK. But I love this. This is really great. So just this is just a funny way of looking at class.
I look down on him because I am upper class.
I look up to him because he is upper class. But I look down on him because he is lower class. I am middle class. I know my place. I look up to them both. But I don't look up to him as much as I look up to him. Because he has got innate breeding.
I have got innate breeding, but I have not got any money. So sometimes I look up to him.
I still look up to him. Because although I have money, I am vulgar. But I'm not as vulgar as him. So I still look down on him. I know my place.
Okay, so obviously from those that little kind of skit, if you like, that little sketch, making fun of class. But I suppose the real question now has to come to us. Basically, is this just an old, outmoded concept? It's a concept that doesn't really apply to us, to the age of acceleration, or to digital marketers such as yourselves, especially working in this, super fast technocultural, world. It doesn't really apply to the content that we would generate. So this is something that really should be confined, or an idea that should be confined to the past. It's not really relevant. It's not about the now. Well, the actual argument for a lot of people is no, because it's right here and it's front and centre with the media, as we can just need to look at basically in this country, for example, or other countries for that matter, the concept of royal families. And this is obviously the royal baby, or people making fun of the royal baby and doing it digitally through digital content. It's pretty horrible, actually. But basically the concept of the royal family basically demonstrates that we are technically subjects, if you like, and they sit at the hierarchy of the whole class system. So although class has clearly been challenged today and countered by, really by social media, as we can see here, this is me arguing against people not to be so welcoming to a royal baby, not the fact that the baby isn't, blameless, or it's a lovely baby and they're lovely people. I'm sure that, let's say they are, but obviously they're born into, is here as I'm arguing through Twitter, is it's an embodied example of privilege, elitism and oppression. And that's what a lot of people who challenge notions of class say. They say, well, look, we shouldn't just accept this, we should really challenge it. And actually the media reinforce it constantly. You just need to, well, we can talk about that later on in the tutorial. But the question for a lot of people is why didn't we have, or why don't we have a revolution? If it is a lot about elitism and oppression, why is it the class system does perpetuate in whatever shape or form? Well, again, as we say, the royal family are a good example because people didn't so much challenge it. They actually clapped and cheered for it, so, they seem to accept it willingly for some strange reason. So what we have to question is well, why did that happen? For a lot of theorists, a lot of academics, a lot of neo-Marxists, they say, well, why is it, or why had the revolution, if you like, not taken place? If it is really about elitism, it is about exclusion, it is about oppression, it is basically about subjugation, keeping people in their place and keeping them down, why have people not really rose up and challenged that system? Well, the argument is that they haven't challenged the power or oppression because a lot of people say of another concept. They call it hegemony. Well, this is just what we mean by hegemony. And obviously you can see here it's not about how we actually keep control through military force or through, for example, the repressive state apparatus, as I've mentioned, as Altshuler calls them, that is again is the police or the military. But people are kept in control through the medium of culture. And we're about creating cultural content digitally. And the media, and that's us, are incredibly powerful mechanisms to keep people, if you like, in their place, or to make them feel that they are comfortable and that the world, is basically all good and rosy, and this is just the way it is, and it's a good system, if you like. Now, you can see clear correlation with the Debord's notion of society, the spectacle, because Debord, remember, argues that the media and the relationship through media is absolutely central. It's clearly culture again, and Debord is more of a neo-Marxist ilk. Here's a deeper take on hegemony, developed by me, and it's this idea about, as I've said here, where ideological and cultural domination of one group or class by another, resulting in one group of class obtaining the active consent, and that's the important bit. We get people actively consent to it. So they actively consent to this, to the fact that, if you like, their manipulation or their control is through this notion of cultural content, the institutional practice. In other words, we come to see it through cultural content. We see the world as just a given. It's just natural. It's normal. And we accept it in a very unthinking way. It's just what we do and how we do it. And that's why I say at the end there, through this process of engineered consensus, inter-class or group conflict, why people don't rise up, is not restricted or suppressed. It's actually eradicated through cultural and institutional sublimation. So in other words, we don't even see it taking place. It's just part of the everyday. Okay? So that's what we talk about when we talk about class. Now, of course, again, it's the classic, it's the big deal stuff. I don't care still. We're not really that interested. Well, we need to get our thinking caps on when we think about these master identities such as class and what it actually means, if you like, for you, because actually your clients and your brand and the content that you're going to generate for brands will actually tap into the concepts, however great or less, of social class. Because for us, the platforms and the content that you generate, class does matter. And there's a very simple way of thinking about it. Now, some of you were obviously, when working in the PSP media again, if you think of golf, there's a golf show, and PSP Media has golf as one of their core forms. Now, golf as a leisure activity clearly has a massive class element to it. Who actually participates in it? Who are those people who are allowed to go? If you think of something like the Masters in America, the top golf competition probably for most in the world. Not only can't people go, but you would argue they would actually self-exclude because they don't actually reflect that group of people. They don't reflect that group of people. They don't reflect how they behave, how they speak, how they walk, how they talk, and how class is demonstrated in and through their capital. Now, clearly for us, if this is the case, if you think of promoting these events and who you promote them to and the content that you use, then you must take note of notions of social class. It does matter to us. And on that note, we'll move on to the next bit.